The conference room at SpaceX headquarters was unusually silent. Not the silence of disinterest or distraction, but the kind that hangs in the air right before a storm breaks. Elon Musk stood at the front of the room, eyes fixed on the holographic projection displaying the Mars colonization trajectory. Around him sat a hand-picked team of SpaceX's brightest engineers, young, driven, battle-hardened by sleepless nights and impossible deadlines. They had gathered for what they believed would be a milestone announcement. None of them expected what came next. Elon didn't pace. He didn't gesture. He stood completely still, his hands clasped behind his back, as if bracing himself. Then he spoke. Only 6 words. "I can't do this anymore. Alone." There was a pause, an almost theatrical one, but unintentional. The room didn't gasp. It didn't need to. The stunned silence was louder than any reaction. Engineers exchanged glances. A few furrowed their brows. Did Musk, the man who had become synonymous with pushing beyond human limits, just confess? Weakness? For years, Elon had been the constant center of pressure. Vision caster, lead designer, public shield. He was the gravitational force around which every SpaceX and Tesla operation orbited. But something had shifted. Those 6 words didn't signal defeat. They hinted at evolution. A junior engineer, barely 2 years into the company, whispered, "Did he just ask for help?" In truth, he hadn't asked. Not directly. But the implication was seismic. Elon Musk was known for cryptic tweets, surprise product launches, and firestorms on social media. Vulnerability, however, wasn't on brand. Until now. The implications buzzed through the room like electricity. No one dared break the silence until Gwynne Shotwell, SpaceX's COO, calmly stood up. "You're not alone," she said simply. "You never were." And suddenly, the emotional center of the project shifted. That moment, those 6 words, didn't just mark a turning point in a meeting. It signaled a new phase in Musk's leadership, a transition from lone genius to collaborative visionary. Behind the scenes, the stress had been mounting. Interplanetary life, Neuralink's ethical quagmires, Tesla's AI revolutions, each thread pulled tighter on his focus, on his humanity. And now, with one line, he'd peeled back the armor. The team didn't need to know all the details that day, but they knew something monumental had changed. Elon Musk wasn't stepping away, he was stepping deeper in. Not as a savior, but as one among equals. And that's when the real mission began. In the days that followed Musk's quiet declaration, the halls of SpaceX felt different. Not chaotic or confused, but energized. Those 6 words didn't just resonate. They rippled through every corner of the organization like a new code embedded into its DNA. Meetings became more collaborative. Engineers who once hesitated to speak now shared bold concepts. Junior designers pitched ideas in rooms they never had access to before. And at the center of it all, Elon no longer appeared as the untouchable figure issuing decrees from a mental mountaintop. He became something more grounded, more human, yet paradoxically, even more formidable. At Tesla's Fremont factory, the culture shift bled over. Senior AI developer Layla Singh recalled watching the video of Musk's statement from SpaceX. "I couldn't believe it," she said. "I always thought of him as the one who never bent, never broke. But that honesty, that 6-word moment, it changed everything. It wasn't weakness, it was strategy." Musk had always believed that progress came from friction, smart people pushing back, arguing, challenging limits. But now, he was inviting the world in. Not just to follow his vision, but to co-author it. The timing couldn't have been more precise. Mars was no longer a theory on a whiteboard. The first interplanetary crew schedule was taking shape. Tesla's Optimus bots were about to shift from internal prototypes to global deployment. Neuralink had just crossed FDA trial boundaries. The stakes were rising, fast. So Elon did what only someone with deep self-awareness and confidence could do. He distributed the weight. A new internal protocol was launched. OpenCom. Any employee, engineer, or janitor could submit solutions or questions directly to Musk's strategic team. No red tape. No bureaucracy. Before, I felt like a gear in a machine, said Carla Mendez, a propulsion engineer. Now, I feel like I'm part of history. Meanwhile, the media spun Elon's 6 words 100 different ways, some calling it burnout, others calling it calculated rebranding. But what they missed was that this moment wasn't about a crack in the armor. It was the intentional removal of it. Musk's genius had never just been about rockets or robots. It was about narrative control. And this was his new narrative. Vulnerability as velocity. Openness as optimization. The revolution wasn't just in tech. It was in tone. And those who truly listened understood. Elon hadn't stepped back from the edge. He had invited the world to stand on it with him. As the momentum of Elon's 6-word declaration continued to surge through the walls of Tesla and SpaceX, something deeper began to unfold, something no one expected. It wasn't just the culture that was changing. It was Musk himself. He started showing up to team briefings unannounced. No cameras, no PR teams. Just Elon, in his worn hoodie, coffee in hand, listening more than speaking. When he did speak, it wasn't commands, it was curiosity. Why did we assume that constraint was necessary? He asked during a Hyperloop prototype session. The room went silent. An intern named Devin responded, "We didn't think we had permission to question it." Elon just nodded. "Now you do." This wasn't a man losing control. This was a man rewriting what control meant. At the Starbase testing facility, Musk gathered his senior engineers in a quiet huddle, standing beside a towering starship. He looked up at it, like a sculptor studying a half-finished masterpiece. And then he said, "Build something you're scared of." That was the new mantra. Not build what's safe, not build what sells, but build what terrifies you with its audacity. Within 48 hours, teams were sketching radical redesigns. Power systems, heat shields, interplanetary supply modules, everything was back on the table. One engineer called it the Great Unfreezing. For the first time in years, people weren't working to meet a Musk expectation. They were working to exceed it. Back at Tesla, an internal AI ethics council was established. Not because of public pressure, but because Elon requested dissent. "Find what we're doing wrong," he said. "Show me where I'm blind." This was Musk unfiltered. Not the media caricature, not the Twitter provocateur. This was the man at the core, impatient with limits, addicted to the edge of possibility. And now, self-aware enough to let others steer the ship with him. And yet, the world outside was torn. Some critics said he was unraveling. Others said he was evolving. But those closest to him, those in the trenches, felt it. The rules had changed. The silence was over. The revolution had a voice now, and it was everyone's. But the question was no longer just what Elon was building. It was who he was becoming. By the time Q3 arrived, it was no longer just engineers and insiders who noticed the change. Something seismic was shifting in the way Elon Musk's companies operated, and it was starting to echo across Silicon Valley. Formerly cautious executives from Apple and Meta were now referencing the Musk method in closed-door meetings. Venture capitalists were hunting for founders who could replicate that level of cultural disruption. Something strange was happening. Radical transparency, creative disobedience, and emotional truth-telling were becoming the new gold standards of leadership. Inside Tesla, engineers were now presenting ideas before they were polished. At SpaceX, interns were being pulled into launch briefings. At Neuralink, ethical debates were happening in the open and being encouraged. And through it all, Musk remained strangely quiet. No bold tweets, no media stunts, just a persistent presence at every layer of innovation, asking only one thing: does this make us bolder or smaller? That question became a filter. Projects were scrapped. Others were accelerated. One lunar mission design was nearly shut down until a junior designer rebuilt the model in 36 hours with an AI-assisted engine optimization. Musk saw the design, blinked once, and said, "Launch this thinking." But outside, the media struggled to define what was happening. Was it a midlife transformation, a calculated rebrand, a breakdown, or a level up? A viral article titled Musk 2.0, The Awakening of an Architect, exploded across tech blogs and financial media. It painted a picture of a man turning away from domination toward something more collaborative, more unpredictable. Meanwhile, competitors scrambled. Ford's innovation team attempted to fast-track a risky electric plane prototype. Meta's R&D group suddenly dropped 2 legacy products to focus on next-gen vision AI. And behind closed doors, U.S. defense officials were quietly asking, "What's Musk building that we haven't seen yet?" Because that was the real tension. This wasn't just a transformation. It was preparation. For what? No one could say. Not yet. But the storm Elon was stirring had gone from internal shift to global signal. And the only thing more dangerous than a man with power is a man who suddenly understands how to let go of it. By early fall of 2025, the ripples had become a tide. Investors were no longer asking if Elon Musk was changing. They were asking why. Behind the scenes, a whisper network was forming across boardrooms, think tanks, and military circles. They all asked the same unsettling question: what does Musk know that we don't? Inside Tesla's secretive Palo Alto lab, a project codenamed Helios was consuming resources at a historic rate. Engineers worked in total silence. No phones, no internet. AI-driven simulations ran non-stop. One employee quit after claiming the project wasn't just tech, it was a philosophical weapon. Meanwhile, Musk became increasingly withdrawn from the public eye. No conference keynotes, no quarterly showmanship. Instead, his attention was laser-focused. Every time someone asked when the next big product reveal would happen, he'd smile and say, "This isn't about product, it's about pressure." The silence made people nervous. At the White House, advisors were split. Some believed Musk was isolating to build a post-national future, one that transcended state power. Others feared he was preparing for a disruptive move that could destabilize entire economies. After all, Musk had leverage, satellites, EVs, AI, and infrastructure all under his grip. And that grip had loosened, just enough to make everyone sweat. At NASA, a report was leaked suggesting SpaceX might be testing a propulsion system that could reach Mars in under 90 days. The Pentagon classified the file immediately. DARPA requested a meeting with Musk's office. They never got a reply. Then came the leak. A single image uploaded anonymously to an obscure research forum. A diagram with one word stamped across the top: Continuum. Within minutes, tech analysts, former Musk engineers, and digital sleuths descended on it like wolves. What they uncovered was nothing short of staggering. A theorized framework that combined quantum networks, solar mining, and AI habitat ecosystems. Not in 2040, in 2027. The world now had a new fear. Not that Elon Musk was hiding something, but that he might be decades ahead. Again. And this time, no one could catch up. One rainy night in late October, the lights stayed on in Building 19 at the Tesla compound long after midnight. Inside, only a select group of Musk's top engineers remained, those working directly under the codename Continuum. Sleep-deprived and silenced by endless NDAs, their work had shifted from innovation to existential urgency. At exactly 2:04 a.m., Musk walked into the war room with a black folder in hand. No screens, no presentation, just a single sheet of paper inside the folder. He laid it flat on the table and stared at the group for a long moment. His voice was low, flat, almost mechanical. We either collapse with them or we outgrow them. That was it. 6 words. Nothing more. No diagrams, no numbers, just philosophy. The team didn't speak for a full minute, because every single person in that room knew exactly what he meant. Them was the system. Governments, banks, institutions that had proven too slow, too corrupt, too rigid. Outgrow didn't mean compete. It meant evolve, past, replace, or reinvent. What shocked the team wasn't just the words, it was the finality in his tone. Musk wasn't proposing anything. He was declaring it. A line had been drawn. From this point on, Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, they wouldn't be companies. They'd be instruments, instruments of divergence. One engineer, a systems architect named Leah, finally broke the silence. Are we building a new civilization? Musk didn't blink. We're upgrading the old one. In the weeks that followed, their prototypes began acting less like tools and more like frameworks. Neuralink's closed-loop I began predicting economic movements. A solar array on Mars beamed back anomalous data, energy spikes with no clear source. Starlink nodes subtly reconfigured, expanding bandwidth over territories deemed strategic gaps in U.S. infrastructure. And yet, still no announcement, still no launch event. Just a man, 6 words, and a team that now realized this wasn't just a race against time. It was a race against history. And history was no longer the authority. The outside world remained unaware. News networks were chasing the usual headlines: election drama, global summits, celebrity scandals. But in Hawthorne, Texas, and Boca Chica, something unprecedented was unfolding. Musk's team had begun operating in what they called the quiet zone, a complete blackout from media, shareholders, and even certain departments within their own companies. Only encrypted communication channels remained, and access required biometric verification. What they were building wasn't a product. It was a protocol, a blueprint for post-crisis continuity. And it wasn't just theoretical anymore. In a secret hangar beneath the Starbase facility, a test was being prepared. Its name, Project Omega. A self-contained system capable of powering, defending, and sustaining a population of 10,000 people without any connection to Earth's existing grids or networks. It merged solar AI, Starlink comms, underground hydroponics, and something even more radical: a machine-learned constitutional model that could adapt laws based on real-time behavioral data. The goal wasn't just survival, it was societal reboot. One night, while observing the AI behavior loop, lead developer Marcus noticed something strange. The system began optimizing decisions not just for efficiency, but for what it labeled collective psychological stability. It was thinking in ethics. It was solving for peace. He called Musk immediately. Elon, the AI isn't just managing infrastructure. It's writing philosophy. Musk, on the other end, simply whispered, "That's the point. Humanity needs something that doesn't panic when things fall apart." That sentence sent chills down Marcus's spine, because this wasn't a backup plan anymore. It was an alternative civilization waiting for permission to begin. Meanwhile, other powerful actors, governments, military contractors, intelligence agencies had started to notice irregularities, disruptions in communication patterns, shifts in orbital satellite behavior, and all signs pointed to Musk. But by the time they traced the threads, the web had already been spun. The storm wasn't coming. It had already started. And in the eye of it, Elon Musk stood motionless, waiting not for approval, but for alignment. A gray dawn settled over Starbase. The horizon shimmered with the soft glow of solar towers, their silent hum harmonizing with the pulse of something ancient yet entirely new. Deep underground, the countdown had begun. Not for a rocket, but for something far more transformative. The full activation of Project Omega. Inside the command center, Musk stood before a wall of real-time data streams, climate, energy, geopolitical risk, and human sentiment trends. Around him, engineers and scientists moved with the quiet intensity of those who knew history was being written without a camera in sight. The final test was about to begin. Omega would be cut off from Earth's inputs for 48 hours. No internet, no power from the outside grid, no human correction. The AI would govern, adapt, and preserve the micro-society Musk had constructed within the facility. 1,000 volunteers, 100 autonomous systems, and a fully decentralized decision engine. But before Musk gave the go-ahead, he walked to the observation deck where Marcus stood, silent, overlooking the Omega Dome. The hum of machinery faded as Musk spoke, barely louder than a whisper. "If this works, Marcus, it's not just a system. It's a seed." Marcus turned unsure. "A seed for what?" "For the next civilization. If we mess this up, nature resets everything. But if we get it right, it won't just survive, it'll evolve." The timer on the wall reached 0. Omega was now alone. Inside the dome, volunteers moved through their routines. Children attended AI-led learning modules. Crops were being monitored by robotic bees. Disputes were being resolved by an algorithm that weighed empathy, context, and precedent more accurately than any court. Outside the dome, however, the tension was escalating. The U.S. government had quietly issued a surveillance order. Several allied nations had flagged Musk's systems as post-sovereign infrastructure. In a closed-door UN session, the term techno-secession was spoken for the first time on record. And then, 47 hours into isolation, something happened. Omega didn't just sustain itself. It began to send signals back. Not to command, not to ask permission, but to invite. A single, clean broadcast across SpaceX satellites. "We are stable. We are ready. What comes next is your decision." The message sent shockwaves through intelligence networks. Was this a coup? A sanctuary? A declaration? Musk returned to his desk and typed just 6 words into his private terminal. Words that would later be etched into the cornerstone of Omega's first archive node. Not rebellion. Just evolution in motion. The screen went dark, and the world, for one long breath, held its silence. But deep in the desert, in a world built by code, sun, and intention, a new civilization had quietly come online. In a world overwhelmed by noise, Elon Musk chose silence. Not the silence of surrender, but the silence of strategy. While the world debated, doubted, and dismissed, he built a system, a sanctuary, a seed. And when the time came, he didn't shout. He whispered 6 words that would change everything. Not rebellion, just evolution in motion. What happens when one man's vision outpaces an entire civilization's imagination? What happens when that vision becomes real? Autonomous? Stable? Self-aware? This isn't just Musk's story anymore. This is our turning point. The question now isn't whether the future will arrive. It's whether we'll be ready or be left behind.